It's a good looking group of people. Well, guys, it's 10 o'clock, so I want to respect your time and I want to get started here. See Garrett back in the background. I guess he's over there. And he's my producer, my studio guy. So guys, I am humbly honored by all of you guys joining just through some of the stuff that I've posted. And I'm really excited just to share this stuff with you and really give you some things that you can apply to your business today that are completely free. And obviously, you know, watching my stories and my social and things like that, I try to give you guys as much value as possible to kind of change your mindset about the current, you know, business that you're operating in real estate. And that's what we're going to go through today is just a few tweaks, some things that you can really apply. But I first want to start out with this, just so you guys get a little bit of the background as to why the real estate agents are so important to me as a community and understanding. So let me just share with you a little bit of background. You know, I've been in the business 22 years. My dad was in the business, my mom and dad, for 40 years. But the crazy thing is that my dad passed away 6 years ago from terminal cancer, 63 years old. And he was a real estate genius, like bar none. Like he lived through none of us have seen, except for if anybody's been in here for longer than 30 years, you saw 18% interest. So can you imagine trying to sell a house with 18% interest? My dad lived that in the late 70s. But what's crazy about it is my dad went through, and I know that all of you guys will actually show of hands for those of you that are on camera. How many of you guys have worked through it with investors that just make you feel like lesser than when it comes down to it? They drag you around. They want you to show them 100 homes. They want you to write offers at 50 cents on the dollar, right? You want to strangle yourself. My dad did this for years for investors. And during the downturn, he built massive portfolios, and these people increased their wealth by 5 and 10 times because of what he was doing. But my dad never had the foresight to do it for himself. And when my dad got sick, that 9 months that I spent with him breaking down his real estate brokerage and seeing what he was doing as I was on the tail end of the foreclosure crisis and market, and getting out of that, and we were starting to transition and pivot, I started to realize the things that I had missed. Anybody in here not buy anything in the foreclosure crisis days? Well, I didn't, and one of my greatest regrets. So when my dad died, my thing was, that is not going to be me. And I'm going to change everything, not only for my family, but as I started doing it, what my dad went through is now what I want to help you guys change in your careers and show you what's absolutely possible in what you do on a day-to-day basis. And here's the mindset shift. Most agents are not lacking the opportunities, they're lacking the connections and how to see the opportunities. And what's crazy is when you see the opportunities, you start to realize there's ways to not only create wealth for yourself, there's ways to solve problems for your clients, all while creating an income for you to live on. So we want to do all of those things in this call, and I'm going to show you what's possible. So you guys ready? Everybody good? Well, I appreciate you guys being here. So let's jump into this, and I hope that you're going to see some cool value you can apply through the investor mindset here. All right, take a second. I did this in one of my masterminds, and I want to explain to you why when we get done. Just write a couple of things down. Wouldn't it be cool if, whatever, I own 10 rental properties, I paid cash for my kids' college, I sold 100 homes this year, I own 100 homes, whatever. Just think about that saying, wouldn't it be cool if? So now I want to give you something that I wrote down 6 years ago as I was sitting there with my dad. Side of the pool, just to give you a visual, I'm sitting on the side of the pool with my dad, who's completely incapacitated, you know, from chemo and all this other stuff. And I started writing, wouldn't it be cool if? And it was, wouldn't it be cool if I owned 10 homes? Wouldn't it be cool if I could buy a house for my parents or my in-laws? Wouldn't it be cool if I had $100,000 in the bank? All of those things that we think about, wouldn't it be cool if? Well, what if we can take that same thing and create the reality around it? When I wrote those, I had no idea how cool it would actually be. And I'm sharing this on the tail end as we're going through it right now, is Wendy and I did just buy a house for her parents. We did just, we have more than $100,000 in the bank. And this was 5 years ago. Now, I want to remind you that 5 years ago, we didn't have any money in the bank and I didn't own any rental properties. And I've been in the business 15 years. So how many of you guys have been in this business for 10 years or more and haven't started building your portfolio? And how many of you have regrets of opportunities that you saw that you should have bought, that you wish you would have, right? We all sit in that boat, and I have lots of them. But guess what? Regrets are a thing of the past, and the only thing you can do is move forward and start making decisions moving forward. You can't regret what's happened. I regret not buying things in 2008, 2009, because I didn't have the mindset to do it. But now it's just changing our mindset. It doesn't matter what the price point is. It matters that we start the process and we start thinking about it and how I create wealth. How cool would it be to own a portfolio? How cool would it be able to compete against the iBuyers and solve problems, right? So speaking of that, one of my favorite books, if you guys haven't read it, read it. It's so simple. It's called Who Moved My Cheese, right? Stupid book. It's really simple. You know what it's about? It's about 4 mice that the cheese starts to dwindle, and 2 of the mice are just getting fat and happy on what's happening, and 2 of the mice are trying to figure out what's next. So they start looking around the maze for the next place where there's cheese. Well, the real estate market is the same way right now. Would any of you agree that over the last 5 years, the cheese has moved as real estate agents, right? Our industry has changed. The iBuyers have disrupted what's happening, and we have to move to where the cheese is. Well, where is the cheese currently? Well, the cheese currently is in problem solving and giving people certainty, solving their problem and getting them from point A to point B, right? That's where our market is heavily reliant on. So that's one of the things that going through all this is going to help you be prepared to capture those opportunities, create wealth, build wealth, create legacy, and also earn a very good living doing it. Is everybody good with that? Because I know a lot of you guys in this business are, especially over the last couple of years, we're chasing things. We all are, right? Including myself. I mean, I've been beat out just as many as you guys have in the market with multiple offers and those types of things. But it hasn't been my only source of the business. That's part of it, is that my business is laid out in different things, different segments, so that I have income coming in from different aspects, so that I'm not stressed out about when something doesn't happen. So I'm pretty sure we can all agree that we want that for our careers, right? Vision is so important. We've all heard it. Vision, write it down, make it clear. It's actual biblically, if you go back to it. And so we want it to be clear. One of the things that came out as I was talking a couple of years ago was my vision. And it was very simple. It's 50-50 at 50. I want to own 50 single family homes at the age of 50 that are producing $50,000 a month in net income. So after expenses, after debt, all those other things. How many people think you could create your dream life with 50 grand a month in passive income happening, or 10 grand or 20 grand? Your vision is different, but I encourage you to have that vision of, what do I want it to look like? Because once you set that vision out, you're going to be amazed at the things that start to pop up and the opportunities you start to be aware of. It goes back to that old thing when, until you buy that car, you never noticed them, but now that you bought it or you're looking for it, you see it all the time, right? Same thing happens in real estate. Well, if you change your mindset from being a salesperson, which is typically what we're referred to in this business, and you start being a person of opportunity and how I help people, opportunities start to pop out, right? As you want to be an investor, you start seeing opportunities different. You might just be out showing homes to a client where you come across one that's completely trashed. And while everybody else is talking shit about that house, you're thinking like, oh God, I hope they don't like this house because I really want to buy this house because there's opportunity here. And sometimes it's really hard to explain opportunity to somebody that's buying out of emotion. And so it turns into your opportunity. How many of us have listed a house or gone into a listing appointment and you're looking around going, oh my God, there's so much opportunity here. But your first thought is, I'm going to go find a buyer so that I can double dip on the commission, right? I remember having that mindset early on in the career. Now my mindset is, I don't want to find the buyer. I already am the buyer. I want to go find the money, right? So rather than spending time finding the buyer, I want to go find the money to capture the opportunity. And believe it or not, there's so much money in this market that people will absolutely invest with you, invest and help you. And it's just having the conversation. So what do those conversations look like? Believe it or not, I will give you the idea and how it actually works when we capture opportunity. We've all had the Zillow call, right? I want to sell my house. We get that lead and we go out there. So let me explain to you where my mind started to change. And it was a little scary, but I want you to see the big picture. 5 years ago, I got a Zillow call in Moon Valley, 19th Avenue in Thunderbird. The house is on wood. And the guy calls, he emails, he's from North Carolina. His grandmother passed and he has this house that he needs to sell. So I go over, I meet with him. The house is probably worth $150,000 at the time. Smells like smoke. It's outdated. It's full of grandma's junk. And he's looking at it. And here's what we do typically, but you are not going to do this after this call, okay? Are we all in agreement that you are not going to take this job on after this call? Early on in our careers, we're trying to give somebody like the utmost value. So like, oh yeah, no problem, Mr. Seller. I have all the referrals and I can help coordinate getting the house repaired and getting it on the market. And now we just took on the job or the role of a GC. So I can tell you how this is really bad. And if any of you guys have had this happen, I know I have, where I've been stiffed on a bill because I hired the person on behalf of the client and then the client wasn't happy with them and the contractor wanted to get paid, but because I hired them, I'm now responsible for it, right? We've all taken on that role. And so I just stopped taking on that role. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry it's in this condition. I do have some contacts I can recommend. You're going to have to coordinate it though. And so now I'm painting the picture that I'm not much help on the GC side, but I can certainly give you the referrals if you want to. So I kind of create a little bit of an obstacle for him because it's really not my job and he's not going to pay me to coordinate it, right? But early on, that was what I was trying to do to further my career. So anyway, so we had the conversation and we talked through, it needed about 30 grand worth of repairs, yada, yada, yada. Well, again, Zillow lead, what was my commission going to be? $4,500, right? Walking out the door was the first time I made the decision of, okay, what is the worst case scenario if I ask this guy if I can buy the house for a price as is, close on it in 10 days? What's the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario, he tells me to go screw myself and I lose a listing and I lose $4,500, right? That's the absolute worst case scenario. And for some of us, that's a scary thought. We go into these appointments and we're like, oh, I got to get this. I need to get paid. I need to get something on the books. It's important, right? But if we don't ask the question, we're never going to know. So I asked the question. By the way, I didn't have any gonads when I asked the question. I walked out the door. My back was to him. And I said, hey, what if I just gave you $100,000 for the house as is, no inspections, and you go back to North Carolina and we close in 10 days? And he walked out and he looked at me and I'm swallowing very hard going, uh-oh. And what happens? He says, give me 102.5 and I'm out of here. Okay, so just let that sink in for a second. First of all, I had no money. I didn't have the credit to buy it. I certainly didn't have the down payment. And I got the guy to agree to 102.5 standing there. So we signed the contract on the hood of the car. When he left, I swallowed really hard and I said, oh shit, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. I didn't know anything about wholesaling. I knew some of the investment side from my dad, but I was curious. I'm like, oh, where am I going to get money? So I started having conversations. The gentleman who I played racquetball with has been a mentor for me for a long time. I asked him, we were having coffee. I'm like, hey, will you loan me $110,000? I found a house that I want to buy at 10% interest. Well, he said, yes. That's 2 yeses. I'm like, oh, sweet. 2 yeses. Here we go. So I bought a house, $40,000 below market. I borrowed money at 10% interest. In 2015, that house was rented for $1,100 a month. And we put just the minimal into it. The house was negative for the first year. But would all of you take and buy a house with hard money if you had that much equity spread and you're spending $300 a month for that equity, right? We can all stop going to Sizzler on Friday night for that extra $300 a month for an asset that we created $40,000 worth of equity. So fast forward a year later, we refinanced the house. It appraised for $170,000. And because of the loan to value being 80%, we had enough equity to take out the hard money lender, put it in long-term financing. And so now you want to go further forward to today, the house just appraised for $320,000. It cash flows $700 a month. And we just pulled $100,000 cash out of the property, which it still cash flows $300 a month now because we pulled the cash out. Now that cash is being deployed into 2 other properties. So you tell me if it was worth giving up that $4,500 commission to ask the question, and the fact that that $4,500 commission, the house actually pays me more than $4,500 every year, and it will until hell freezes over. So who wants to be prepared for those type of opportunities, right? That's what this is about. Okay. I don't want any of you on this call to think about your careers that all it is income and transaction counts. And at 65, if I didn't do the right things, I'm out putting open house signs in Sun City because I still need to create income. That's my goal for you guys. I don't want anybody to have that. I want you at, your career to be able to stop. And by the way, the last 5 years has been a crazy roller coaster, and I could stop right now. I can turn all this off. I can turn my real estate business off. I could sell half of my portfolio and be retired. But here's the deal. The legacy that my dad left me is to continue to share and help others build wealth so they don't end up like my dad. So I've done it for myself, and now I'm sharing it with you guys how to get there. And by the way, if most of you guys don't know, I'm not a guru. I'm in the same business that you guys are day in, day out, taking the calls, working with buyers, working with sellers, because that's where my passion is. I've just figured out how to add a layer of how to build some wealth along the way while I'm serving my clients. And now I get to serve my community. And by the way, if you guys look around at this call, nobody in here is your competition. Everybody in here is your colleague. And together as an industry, this is how we change it. This is how we compete against the Zillows, the OfferPads, the Open Doors. And I'm sorry if anybody's in here from 72 Sold, because I know that you should all be giggling because of that. But this is how we compete. All these companies have come out with certainty and problem solving, and we can all do the same thing. And how we do it is we do it together, right? You might be early on in your career where you went to a listing appointment and it's trashed. You might not have the money to do it right now, but guess what? Can we work together to create a win-win situation on a house as you're getting prepared to do these things? And oh, by the way, if you bring me one of those deals, I'm going to question you on it. I'm going to question as to why you're not doing it right now. Is it the lack of connection? Is it that you need income? Because we're all in different phases of our career. And early on when I started, it was really about creating more income so that I could get stable. And some of you guys might be in that boat. Maybe you need some stability. Well, the stability is, hey, there's always a buyer, and you are always a client, and I'm always one of your clients. And that's how we win together. We all good on that? Same page? Cool. Can I share with you guys my favorite quote as we move forward? Because this is how I live and breathe. It's what I look at every day, because this poster is actually in my office. I'm, he's not a great poet. I mean, not from anybody you would realize, but is that slide up there? Can you share my screen? There it is. Okay. My favorite quote is Eminem. And this applies to everybody in this room on this call. My question is back to the listing appointment that I went on. If you had one shot, one opportunity to capture everything you ever wanted, or are you going to let it slip? That applies to every house. When I look at it, there's an opportunity. Am I going to let it slip? Am I going to let it pass? Or am I going to capture it and I'm going to move on? Right? Capturing those opportunities has to do with being prepared to see those opportunities. Okay, let's really talk about the investor mindset when it relates to everything you do in life. There's a couple of words that I want you to change today. If this is one thing you hear on this call for completely free, it's one thing that I want you to change in your appointments, in your conversations with your buyers, your sellers, your spouses, everything. Okay, we're going to change these words. I want you to take the words charge and cost out of your vocabulary. I want you to take them out of your responses with people, and I want you to go back with the word invest. The difference between charge and cost is a financial pain point for anybody. So I want you to picture this. You're in a listing appointment and somebody goes through it, and their ask of you is, what are you going to charge me to sell my home, right? This is when we go into, well, it's going to be 5%, 6%, whatever it is. You're going to lean into the seller and you're going to say, I don't charge anything, but I am going to ask you to invest a piece of the equity in your home to guide you to the very best situation that we can possibly imagine. And here's what I want you to understand your investment. Part of the commission is an investment into enticing other real estate agents to bring their buyer here. So you're investing to get them to bring their buyers here. The other investment is you're investing in me, my abilities, my team, and my experience to guide you to the right place. Do you think that's worth it to you based on our conversation? So now we've changed it from a financial pain point of something they're losing to the return on investment. So what is the return on investment? This is where you guys get into your presentations of, what are your value propositions? What does your team offer that somebody else doesn't? Maybe it's your personality, maybe it's your red shoes. I don't know. But that's where you start going down the road of why it's worth it for somebody to invest a piece of their equity into your guidance in selling it. And that's really important. So let's flip the script onto buyers. Okay. We have a rule of thumb in our office that we don't work with buyers until they agree to invest in our company with a buyer broker, and they're investing in our commitment to them and finding them a house. Okay. This year has been hard on all of us as we're representing buyers, correct? So I didn't want to waste time. I didn't want my agents to waste time. And Nicole's on the call. We've had a couple of wasted buyers this year, and we just decided, like, no mas, right? If we're going to spend time with somebody, the commitment has to be mutual. So how do you have that conversation with the buyers? Well, I'll give you kind of the secret that we learned, and Nicole and I have experimented in multiple strategy sessions with buyers. We've started it off first with the buyer broker. That kind of backfired because somebody's thinking you're charging them rather than an investment. So we go through the buyer presentation or consult, and at the end, we ask them to invest in their guidance into their next home. And here's why it's a great investment and a great return on investment for you. So we go through and we put the buyer broker agreement at 3.5%. And we explain to them that they're going to have some investment into guidance. And the more we talk to them, the more comfortable they get that it's an investment and that I'm not charging them money. I'm asking them to invest some of their money for guidance in their next stage of life. Can everybody apply those sayings to their appointments today? Right? Can you have that conversation? Because once you understand the difference between cost and charge and investment, you'll realize that everything you're spending money on is an investment. So you guys all run businesses, right? So when you charge something or when you spend money, now your mindset is going to be, is this going to be worth the investment? And what is my rate of return on investment? Okay. Which means, what are you going to get out of that? You're going to start asking those questions when you buy a new software, you buy a new subscription. What is my return on investment? So for instance, Garrett's in the background. Dennis Gable is on the call. He's my branding producer right now, and he's working through a lot of things. Garrett's working through a lot of things. They are an investment. They are not costing me in payroll. They are not costing me on a monthly basis. They are an investment. So what is my return on investment? Well, my social media looks better. My content is better, and they're helping me and guiding me to and through where I want to be. So just think about the things that you're investing in on a day-to-day basis. You know, on my stories the other day, I'm like, this $100 I just put in my gas tank, no matter what's going on in the economy, is an investment into doing a walkthrough, going up to Dumun's Park. It's a pretty minimal investment for that $100, right? For a maximum return with our clients. So nothing has to do with cost. Everything has to do with how we invest. Same thing with my kids. We talk about it. What are you investing in Dutch Brothers? Because that's where they both work, right? So they're trading time for money. That's their investment. I invest time here. They pay me money. That's my return. Well, before they started working there and coffee was free, I would ask them, like, dude, $150 this month on coffees. What's your return on investment there? Well, it depends. Was there a really good conversation over a cup of coffee? Did you meet a new friend? There's a lot of different things that we have to equate to it differently. Same thing with expensive dinners. Well, you're trading some money as an investment into relationships when we do that. So just keep that in mind, that that's really what we want to trigger and we want to change on a day-to-day basis to have that mindset. Can you unmute everybody? Does anybody have any questions, comments, discussion before I keep going as I'm just rambling on? Nope. Everybody's good?
There actually was a question in the chat.
Is there a question in the chat?
From Carmen, yeah. It said, let's see, she said, I'm a new agent, and so it's just hard to find. I'm trying to get my mouse back here. She said, my biggest fear is not knowing how to get started. I'm a new agent.
Okay, Carmen asked, I'm a new agent. How do I get started? That's actually a really good question. Here it is, Carmen. I believe that you have to learn to crawl before you walk, which means as a new agent, even today, you're investing time being on this call because you're learning something new. And now you're going to see things differently when you leave this and you go on the next appointment, you're out showing homes, because now your mindset is going to be shifted a little bit on the investment side and does this work. So as you're a new agent, I really believe that you need to experience the business. You work with buyers and sellers because it's giving you knowledge on how things work. It's also giving you knowledge on questions and things that people are answering or asking. And now what's happening is you're starting to get a knowledge base of the market, especially here in Phoenix or wherever you might be located. So market knowledge is really important. It's the one thing I've never understood about like the wholesaling community or the investor community is that they really don't have market knowledge. Like that's our secret weapon. You can give me an address and a zip code and a size, and I can tell you whether or not I would buy the house because I have market knowledge. So, Carmen, to what you asked, you keep doing these things, your regular business. Just like I said, I still work with buyers and sellers. The reason being is that if I'm not working with buyers and sellers, I don't have a pulse on the market, and I want to keep a pulse on the market. So right now you're learning the business and you're starting to get a pulse on the market, which is going to make you great at what you're doing. And if you're new, I wish, and I'm sure there's a bunch of people on this call, I wish somebody had this conversation with me year one in the business, that there are other alternatives to just working with buyers and sellers, especially when you shift and go, hey, I'm always a buyer. I'm always looking to invest if the right opportunity is there. And now we want to show you how to capture those opportunities when they arise. And there's so many different ways to do it. So Carmen, I hope that gives you some insight as to that. Any other questions in there?
There is actually a great follow-up question to that from Garrick. And he says, what stimulates your deal flow for investment properties that will accept a cash offer?
Oh, so what stimulates my deal flow? Guys, that is probably the best thing about my business as I've grown. For those of you that follow me, the deal flow has come through just people knowing that I can solve problems, that I can do leasebacks, that I have the ability to buy. So if people don't know, especially your clients don't know you are that solution, guess what they're doing? They're calling Zillow, OfferPad, Open Door, and you didn't even know they did, right? Because they didn't know. All they thought was that you're just a real estate agent, right? Which we all hate that, right? Oh, you're just a realtor. I'm not. I actually despise that term, just from the standpoint that I'm not just a realtor. I'm a problem solver. I'm a strategist. And I've learned how to strategize through my own stuff. And that's what I want to teach you guys, is how to build better strategies, and more importantly, ask better questions. So deal flow simply comes from being prepared for opportunity. I will tell you that last year or this year, we probably bought anywhere between, I was just looking at the numbers. I think the last call, there's some more looking to enter in on the waiting room, Garrett, sorry. When we go through it, you start creating, I totally lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry for that. The deals last year, I think on the last call, I said it was about 50%. And I think it was closer to like 35% of the listing appointments I went on that we actually acquired the property through some shape or form. So a lot of deals, I'm not seeking them out. I'm just prepared. So you guys are calling me and telling me, hey, I've got this deal. This is what they need. And this is the price. Is there anything you can do? So on Saturday, I get a referral from another agent, who said, hey, my clients bought another house. I need to fulfill their contingency today. And the house needs a little bit of work and they need a 60-day lease back. So together we were able to solve, and that's where my deal flows are really coming from. And then, the whole other part of that equation is, now what do I do with that property? Well, that's a whole nother topic of conversation of where properties go and how we determine what to keep, what not to keep.
Yeah, got a couple more questions too, if you want.
Do it.
So follow up to that one would be, what other solutions are you providing, like cash offers or leasebacks?
Okay. Whatever solutions are we providing? So a lot of different things. As I've evolved, the problems have gotten bigger and smaller, and it's just listening to the clients and figuring out what they need. Actually, Christy's on the call. Christy referred me to a gentleman, which was really cool. Christy, can you unmute for just a second?
Hello.
Oh, which Christy is this? There's two Christys on the call.
This is the wrong one, probably, because I didn't refer you to anybody.
Christy Carrier. There you are. Are you unmuted?
Okay, I unmuted myself. Hey, how are you?
But I think that's Christy Isalas on the other iPhone, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
so,
I think it's Christy Isaias, but
okay, that's really cool. So I want you guys to see what happens. Okay. This is where we connect the dots, and this is really fucking cool because I have to custom make it known. Okay. So Christy Isalas, she finds a deal in a Facebook group that's a little bit close to retail. We go and look at it and we decide that I'm going to partner with her and we're going to buy this rental property. Wendy's going to renovate it and we're going to keep it for long term. We went through a bunch of different things. One of the reasons we went through it was it's really close to the Taiwanese semiconductor plant. So we were looking at future growth and rentals and job growth and all that other stuff. So there was a strategy as to why we bought it. We completely redid the house. It looks really cool. The tweaker that lived there before, totally destroyed the house. So Christy and I bought it. It's in the process of being renovated. Well, other Christy sends me a text. Hey, I've got a good friend. He's having a really hard time for him and his son finding a house. Do you have anything? So he reaches out. I have a call with him and I'm like, dude, I got this house that I own. It's just about finished up. You can go take a look at it. I gave him a lockbox code and he calls back. He's like, you're making a Green Beret cry. The guy's a veteran. Couldn't find a house for him and his son. I sent him over there. So he rented the house. He moves in, I think tomorrow or Friday. And so you talk about connecting the dots inside our sphere. That's what happened. So together we bought a house. We solved a problem. We renovated it. We found a house. Christy referred me to this guy. We solved his problem. That's the ultimate game at the end of the day. Everybody wins in this, right? Christy used a connection to find a house for a friend. He's super happy. Other Christy finds an opportunity and figures out, hey, maybe I can partner. Maybe we can do this. And originally she called just for me to look at the numbers and we ended up buying it and keeping it as long-term rental together. That's pretty cool, right? That's the power of community. That's the power of connection. That's the power of what we can do when we agree that, hey, there's going to be some listing appointments you kick my ass on. There's going to be some that I kick your ass on. But at the end of the day, it's all part of the business. And it doesn't have anything to do with the presentation. Sometimes it just has to do with personality. Some people might not like my freaking red shoes. I'm okay with that, right? They might like you differently. Personalities are different. So just be okay with that. So thank you both for sharing that. Hope that answers the question. I think it did.
There's one more about
Okay.
The best way to find hard money lenders.
Finding hard money lenders.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about hard money for a second. One, I can always connect you with hard money. I've got a great guy that does it. But hard money is one tactic. Relationship money is where I live. So interesting stat is percentage wise, if I look at my database, there is anywhere between 5 and 10% of your current database that has money in the checking account doing absolutely nothing, that if you approach them, not to ask them for money, so let's be really clear on this, to give them an opportunity to create wealth through investing in real estate without owning it. So those were conversations I started off. So I want you to hear how the conversation goes. It's relationship capital. Right now, I manage about $15 million worth of relationship capital. Now, I don't have that all in my bank, but that $15 million has been raised all through clients, through referrals that have cash. They don't want to own rental properties, but they're looking for a rate of return on their investment. And more importantly, I put a spin on it, which is my investment is, or my opportunity is for them to help me solve problems for myself, for families. And it's pretty cool when you find people with money who want to see you succeed and they are willing to jump in and help you. That is where all the capital that we use to buy homes has come from. It is all from clients. It's not, I use hard money lenders when I run out of relationship money, which doesn't happen very often, but this year it definitely happened. So you have, and here's a simple tip. I would encourage you guys, as you start talking about investments and things like that on your social media, do this one post. If you had $200,000, or if you have $200,000 in the bank right now, or in an investment, what is your rate of return? Question mark. People will come back and just so you guys know, on clarity wise, understanding what rate of return is, or cap rate. Rate of return is the amount of money that you invested. Well, actually, it's the return on investment. So let's say you made $6,000 this year on $100,000. You would divide the $6,000 by the $100,000. That would give you your cap rate or your rate of return, which is probably right around 6%, maybe 5%. Okay. Investors, when you're giving them opportunity, you might see some people like, I'm getting 2% on a CD. I'm getting 3% on this. I'm getting 5 on this. Some people will tell you their return on the stock market has been awesome. You know, it's been double digit. So what's the problem with those two types of investments, the CD versus the stock market? The CD is guaranteed, but you can't pull it out. There's no pulling it out without penalties, and you're getting a really crappy rate on return, right? But it's a safe investment. It's always going to be there. You go to the stock market, there's risk, right? It goes up and down. Yeah, these last couple of years have been freaking awesome, but it also has the ability to do what it did in 2008 and drop like a rock. So you can lose your net worth in a heartbeat. Real estate, when I'm working with my investors, when I started, I was giving them a guaranteed rate of return per annum of 10%, right? You lend me $200,000 and I have it out for 12 months. I'm giving you 10%, which is 20 grand on your 200,000. And oh, by the way, it's secured by a house that I bought below market. That's a pretty good investment for somebody. And then when you add one more thing to it, not only getting a 10% rate of return, but look at the problems I'm helping people solve in our local community. So when I talk to my investors, I'm like, hey, every time you invest with me, I'm impacting 55 local families in our community, from the people that my wife employs to my employees, to the seller that we solve the problem, to the next family that's going to move into it. That makes older people feel really good about their investment. And they're really into it, to the point that some of them, you know, I have 3 investors right now that collectively make up 10 million of that 15 million. And that's how much they have learned to believe in what I do. And you guys can create the same thing. You do one, you give them some confidence. You do another one, you build more confidence. And you start going through that. And it's amazing what happens, because now they refer you to their friends who have money. And now you're like, oh, I've got more money than I know what to do with. And that's the power of it. But you only need one to start, right? So you might have a relative or somebody. Again, we're not asking anybody for money. We're giving somebody an opportunity. So don't feel slimy like I'm going out and asking people for money. You're not. You're giving people an opportunity to invest. Plain and simple. I do want to go back to the last question that Garrett, I don't know who asked it, but the other parts of problem solving. So the Christies were one, but the other thing that we did this year was, how many of us were getting beat out over and over again with multiple offers, usually a cash buyer, something of that nature. And 6 contracts later, your buyer's frustrated, you're frustrated. Well, we did a reverse convenience fee or investment, right? It's not a charge, it's an investment. And this year, we ended up buying probably 25 to 30 homes for clients that were getting beat out on multiple offers. So we gave them the ability to trigger a cash purchase, and there was an investment. There was a 3% investment fee for them to use my cash. I had to buy the house for them. They bought it back, but it worked. It increased our income substantially this year, but it worked, and it solved a lot of problems for a lot of people that were just having buyer fatigue. So they invested a little bit more money. And here's the crazy thing. Those people, especially early on this year, you know, we've had some buyers give up. The people that decided that the investment into the buying program that we had this year was worth it, those are the people that really won this year, because of the increase in prices, because what you could buy at the beginning of the year versus now is completely different, right? So that's some of the ways that we're looking at, you know, how do we solve problems for buyers? Well, we have bought homes for people. It's worked out really well. I have bought homes from people in order to fulfill their contingency and get them moved to the next thing. So there's a lot of different areas that it applies when you get into the investment mindset. You start figuring out, like, how do I solve problems like the one that I had for a past client. Her grandmother had a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo in Sun City. She owned it free and clear. She wanted to buy a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Well, of course, that day we met, they went out, they found an open house they loved. Problem is, we don't have this contingency fulfilled over here, and they need the cash. So as you start building and you become a problem solver, this is how we solve that problem. We wrote the offer on that one, on the 2-bedroom, 2-bath. I did a first mortgage. I loaned them the equity against the house for $140,000. So it gave them the money. And then I did a second mortgage for $50,000 over here. So they were able to pay cash for that. We sold this one. I recovered my money, and everybody got to move seamlessly, right? But what would have been the reverse for most of us when we walk in the door? Well, we have to sell this one and get this one under contract before we even go look, because this isn't an option because I can't solve this problem over here yet. I want you guys to be able to solve that problem the same way I do. How do I solve it for my client? Now, keep this in mind. I'm not doing this for a sign call, right? These are clients that I've known. They're clients that I've worked with. They're past clients. They're a referral. That is one of the things. I don't do this for just anybody, but it is something that I have in my bag of tricks that I can solve the problem. And I want you guys to have the biggest bag of tricks possible so that you never have to tell a client no. You just tell them, we just need to work it differently than normal. Okay, so what can you invest? Okay, Carmen, you asked earlier, right now, you have more time than treasure to invest, right? Because you're new to the business. So when we're new, we have more time to look at things. So when we have that extra time, you're investing into what would my rental portfolio be? I'm going to go look at fix up homes just to start seeing, getting my mind wrapped around it. Because you don't necessarily have the treasure or the income to invest in it yet, but you do have the time to educate yourself. And when you educate yourself, you're living in the moment, you're living in the space, and you're going back to that first saying of, wouldn't it be cool if I could buy this fix up opportunity today and I could keep it as a rental? You're going through all those things. So you're investing time into your future. And then we've got talent, right? Right now, I'm investing my talent into you guys. That's important. I invest my talent into my day-to-day social media to have an impact on somebody. I don't know who that somebody is because we never truly know who's watching, but I do hope that it's having an impact, and that's where our talent goes. And when you guys are working with buyers and sellers, you're investing your talent into them in exchange for the return on investment, which is the paycheck at the end, right? And then we've got our treasure. Now we start investing our treasure or our income into other things that are going to add value and build wealth. Those are the three things that we have to invest. So you're constantly moving through, what do I have, right? At the beginning, I had time and I had talent. And now I have the time, talent, and treasure to invest in other things. And they're going to shift as your career moves on as to what you're utilizing and what your strength is. You got more questions?
That's not shared with the board.
Oh, will you share that?
No, you need to share it to the board.
Oh, did it turn off? Yes. Dang technology.
One of the questions while you're doing that was,
Yep.
Are you using the relational capital to cover the down payments on these assets and then doing traditional long-term financing on the rest, or are you structuring long-term loans with the relationship capital?
Ooh. Repeat that one more time.
Are you using this relationship capital to cover the down payments on these assets and then doing traditional long-term financing on the rest? Or are you structuring long-term loans with this relationship capital?
Okay, so the relationship capital, it is not a mixed bag. So I don't keep it all in one account. It's actually per property. So these are complicated. So when you start mingling investor funds, you're under regulations, SEC, all these different things. So we keep everything separated. So some of the relationship capital, it has been used to secure a property, but it has not been let me give you the flow of it. I use relationship capital to secure a deal. And then once we figure out what we're doing, that if we're renovating it, we're going to keep it as a rental. Then we take that and we refinance out of the hard money into long-term based on the value that we've created in the property. So that's actually a really good question, because this really leads into how we build wealth. So let's talk about how Wendy and I have accomplished what we've accomplished in the short 6 years that we've really had this mindset. Today, our portfolio is estimated value at somewhere between $35 and $40 million of a combination of single family homes, some commercial property, some VRBOs, some second homes, and our primary residence, right? Now, there's no way possible that I had anywhere near 20% of that 40 million to put down. Okay. Would have been $8 million. I have not made $8 million. So when you see an opportunity, here's the crazy thing. if I can buy it a little bit below market and I can add value to it by remodeling it, adding a bedroom, whatever it is, and I can increase that gap while I have hard money on it, and you go to refinance it and add value or refinance it, you now get to use the spread of what you bought to recover that difference in what you need for down payment. It's crazy that you can create a 20% down payment out of thin air, but you can. And that's how we've created our portfolio. So one of my preferred amazing lenders is on the call, Andrew Karam. The poor guy, I put him through hell about every 60 days when I email him and go, okay, I need to refinance another 10 properties, right? We have to go through all this chaos. He does traditional lending, but he also has an asset-based lending, which is lending directly to the property for investment purposes. So what we do is we kind of go through and I use relationship capital, secure the deal. Sometimes I don't quite have the equity, so I may let it ride a little bit before I refinance it, because I want to capture as much equity as I can on the appraisal to create as much down payment as possible, because whatever that appraisal doesn't cover, I'm going to have to put it in cash. So that's one of the very technical things that I'm really going to dive into in the situational mentoring as we go forward, is really how to structure these deals and how to see them and how to break down the numbers, because we've gotten really good at figuring out how to capture something relationship, how to bury the repair money and get it back, and truly be into an investment properties with no money. How many people would like to build a portfolio without having any money into it, or very little, right? It's really possible. It just is. If you know, and if you know how to manipulate the system. Close your ears, Andrew. Manipulating the system is just how we start, right? Some people think it's the end, but it's actually processing from the very beginning. So when I buy a house, I know how to structure the closing with first and second mortgages and certain ways to capture the ability to create a zero down payment or an 80% loan to value to keep that property forever, so that it creates a little bit of cash flow, but I still don't have any money into it, but I still have a good chunk of equity in it. Now, who's confused? Hopefully nobody. Okay, but it's very possible to do this from that standpoint. Okay, next one, guys, there's 3 books from the investor mindset, and Garrett's going to throw them up on the screen. There's 3 books that I highly recommend in this order. Okay, Think and Grow Rich. If you haven't read it, by Napoleon Hill. I had an investor 20 years ago that really encouraged me to get into this book. So I read it the first time, and then I bought the audio version, which is unabridged, which kind of equates what happened in the book to today's age. So if you guys haven't read it, Napoleon Hill, Andrew Carnegie challenges Napoleon Hill that he would introduce him to the wealthiest people that built this country, you know, the JP Morgans, Carnegies, all of those people in these tycoons. I'm going to introduce you to these people, and I want you to interview them as to why they're so wealthy. So the book, after all of his interviews, the most wealthy people, comes out Think and Grow Rich. So these people thought a lot and became rich, and they started putting things into motion, which is the same thing that you guys are going to do. Is we're going to think about how many properties we want to own. We're going to think about the opportunities, and we're going to grow those opportunities into wealth, or if you want to call it rich, whatever you want to be. But everybody's definition of success, wealth, and rich is completely different, right? So Think and Grow Rich is the first one. And then you want to get into Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki, he's a big real estate guy. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is an amazing book. And what it is I really resonate with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And here's what I mean by that. In his book, his dad was a teacher, and his dad was considered the poor dad, not in a financial standpoint, but in a mental capacity. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad talks about his poor dad mental capacity was to work, save, live below my means, live a life I really don't want to live so that I can live a longer life that I really don't want to live. That's the mentality of retirement, right? I want to make just enough money and put just enough aside so that I can continue living below my means. So the rich dad is his best friend growing up, who is a multimillionaire, has tons of business, has tons of real estate, and he's always getting different lessons from the rich dad on investing in real estate, investing in companies, how to, I think one of his things was he was creating a wallet, so he was going through all these ventures to be like his rich dad, because that was the mentality of, well, rich dad is in his 40s and he's not even thinking about retiring, but he could. Poor dad is in his 50s trying to figure out how to work another 15 years so he has enough money to retire, right? And I think retirement is so much different for all of us at this point. It's not the same thing that what our parents thought about retirement, which retirement's not an age, it's a number, right? Have any of you guys heard Chris Hogan? He used to be on Dave Ramsey stuff. He did a book called, I think it was called Retire, Inspire, or Inspire, Retired, one of the two. He had a lot of great advice in that book. But one of the big things that he said was retirement is a number in the bank in which you can pretty much walk out of work anytime you want. That's when retirement hits. Retirement is not like I got 65, now I can collect Social Security and do nothing. To be honest with you, that sounds extremely boring to me. I meet a lot of those people in Munns Park that they had a great life. They live in their cabin, they play golf every day. And I'm like, oh, if I have to play golf every day of my retired life, I would shoot myself. Some people, that is their pleasure. That is pain for me. So retirement is different for everybody. So it gets to the point when I talk about my 50-50 at 50, at age 50 is the point that I can walk away, or I can shut it down, or I can keep going, but I know the foundation has been set, right? So that's something we all have to think about as we go through the retirement point. So that's where Rich Dad, Poor Dad is that, retirement becomes a number, not an age. And that's what we're working towards. And that's why you want to start thinking about, wouldn't it be cool if, what does retirement look like? What does my passive income look like that is going to allow me to have the dream life that I think about, right? So that's what we want to do. And then you get into cash flow quadrant. Cash flow quadrant is really where, we all start out, in the real estate business. We're in some sense form kind of an employee. We joined a team, we joined a brokerage. Even though we're on commission, we're still kind of an employee, right? And we're trying to build in from the employee mindset to self-employed to business owner to entrepreneur / investor, right? That is the path. And that's why he separates the quadrants in the path that we want to go. So as real estate agents, we want to go from agent to entrepreneur investor while we're going through our career, so that you can end up, well, I've got investments, I'm running a business, I can step away from my business. So we want to get to that point to where now we're investors. And that's kind of the fun part. I was actually on a private coaching call before this, and we were talking about building his foundation. So for the last 5 years, I have done nothing but build the foundation. So what does the foundation look like? The foundation looks like it is a group of properties that is your foundation for retirement. So, my foundation has been built with about 65 homes. That's going to create my ongoing retirement. And now we're looking at other things to invest. So we're invested in an alcohol company, which is really interesting because I stopped drinking 18 months ago. But a good friend of ours, they were raising capital for a new alcohol company coming out, and it was female investors only. So we gave my wife a bunch of money and she went and invested in that company. So now we're diversifying some of our stuff. But here's the crazy thing. There's no way 5 years ago I would have done that. But I was so focused on building the foundation so that once the foundation is built, now I can stack other investments on top of it outside of the foundation of the business that I really love and enjoy, which is real estate. But now we're making money and we're taking money out of houses and we're putting it in other places. And that's what the foundation does for you, right? So as you build it, your net worth is growing. And, as I talk about net worth, one of the things that's interesting about this industry is when you guys we're at the end of the year, right? Crazy how fast this year has gone. We're at the end of the year. You guys are starting to have your teams, your companies, you might be leading them where we're doing goals. And we're starting to talk about 2022. We're starting to talk about that plan. Here's 2 goals that is on very few people's goal list for next year because it's masked by the industry standard goals. The industry standard goals are what? What is everybody on the leaderboard for, right? It's either GCI or transaction count. And just so all you guys know, I don't give 2 shits about either of those. And neither should you, right? It's not what I got into the business for. If you want to compete, that's fine. That's up to you. I'm focused on my net worth goal and I'm focused on my giving goal. Because if I'm focused on those, all of these things are going to help me accomplish those things. So I encourage you guys as you're setting your goals, what is my net worth goal? If you guys don't know how to get to net worth is your assets minus your liabilities. So if you own $1 million house and you have $900,000 worth of debt, your net worth is $100,000. So ask yourself, what do I want to increase my net worth by next year? And how am I going to get there? Either you're paying off debt to increase net worth, or you're buying assets to create net worth. Just keep in mind that when you're buying real estate, your net worth is going to fluctuate, just like the stock market. You're worth this much today. You might be worth this much tomorrow. You might be worth more that day, depending on what's happening. So crazy to think about for any of us that own properties currently, even in your primary, think about what happened 2 years ago and how all of our net worth has changed just out of organic. But I want you to think about if 2 years ago, what if I owned 10 properties just before pandemic? What if I had the foresight to keep buying homes during the pandemic and not freaking out, right? So being prepared for opportunities. So you want to really work through thinking about how do I want to increase my net worth every year? And you may or may not, I think all of us have some sort of charity in us where we do want to give. You might give to your church like I do. You might do tithing, and then you've got other sources. So we always look at our giving goal and how much do we want to give annually and who do we want to give it to as part of our goals, because the income and these transactions, they're also the goal. But then there's also one more goal, which is, hey, how many properties do I want to buy this year? Maybe it's just one. Maybe just one. Can you imagine if you'd been in the business for 10 years and you bought one property per year, what would your net worth look like right now? It only takes one. It's one at a time, and your goals might be different. You might say, hey, you know what? I could live a really good life on $10,000 a month in passive income. Cool. Then make that the goal, right? That means you got to buy 5 homes that rent for $2,000 a month, which is pretty easy to do right now. And you need to get them paid off to create that income. So there's a strategy to all that. So I really want you guys to think about it as you're doing goals and challenge the people around you, challenge your team, right? What does your net worth want to be, right? Let's just not focus on the income and the transaction counts, because those are not going to get you to retirement. Those are not going to make your life better. I mean, they are, because they're income and they give you abilities to invest, but we also want to figure out how we're capturing opportunities to build wealth, which means we have to not look at instant gratification. Instant gratification comes from commissions or flips or whatnot. And we want to look at long-term gratification, which is where the wealth is built, so that we can retire and we do have those things to fall back on when we need them. Can you throw that up on the screen, Garrett? Here's the path. So if we start looking at the path and what my path has been, I started off as an agent, just like everybody else on this call. I worked buyers. I learned from my dad. I worked with sellers. And then, when the market fell apart, I worked in the foreclosure business. Some of you probably worked short sales. There's so many different things going on in that 2007 to 2014 market. And then now, you go from agent and you start changing your mindset to investor. So if I had an investor mindset and I knew all the things that I know now back in 2008, I would definitely be retired right now. because I would have borrowed money. I would have put money on credit cards, right? Because back then I literally sold homes and condos for $15,000, $20,000 that Fannie and Freddie owned and had foreclosed on. And you could have put a fence around them for 10 years and you would have made a boatload of money, right? But I didn't have the foresight to do it. So I'm hoping that just today, you guys will just change your mindset on the investor side. It's not scary. We're in the business. We know how to do it. Sometimes we're just too scared to do it because there's no direction and there's no guidance and there's no one to really talk it through. And the reason I say that is because if you think about the amount of people that I've spoken to over the last 2 years, 3 years, it's very interesting that only about 5% of our industry actually invests in what we sell. So I'm going to repeat that. 5,000 people I spoke to from stages. And when I asked the question of those rooms, only 5% of the agents actually own investment properties, but 100% of them will sell something they know nothing about. Okay. And I don't say that to come down on anybody that you're selling properties to investors, but do you think that your conversation would be much different when somebody calls and says, I want to invest in real estate when you've done it yourself? Do you think you're going to be able to guide them better? Do you think you're going to be able to strategize for them? Do you think that your expertise is much different when you know about what you're selling them and you can guide them differently? And that's where my business has grown now, is that majority of my time is spent strategizing with my clients to build portfolios. So think about this. As you start doing it, your conversations will change and your business will improve because now you're teaching your clients how to invest. One of the things we do here is we all work with first-time home buyers, right? What if I could get those first-time home buyers to buy 5 houses in the next 7 years? Because of getting them to understand how to create wealth and giving them a strategy and letting them know that, hey, we're going to go out and look at houses, but I want you to know that we're not buying a house. We are buying a home, we're buying a house, however you want to put it psychologically. We're buying your first investment property, which you are going to rent from yourself for the first year. And in 12 months, I'm going to come back, I'm going to put you in touch with Andrew, and we're going to refinance the house, and we're going to figure out what the next phase is to keep this as a rental and move to the next house. And we're going to keep doing that until we get to your dream life budget of owning these homes that make sense for your long-term future. So what did I just do? 2 things. Yes, I created a buyer that is now potentially going to buy 5 or 6 homes. Yeah, it creates income. But do you know how cool it is to look at I'm going to call her my adopted niece, Malia. She's the cutest thing in the world. But David and Taylor are good friends of ours, and she calls Wendy Aunt Wendy. The first house we sold them, which by the way happened over a game of dominoes within 48 hours. But then a year later, we were renovating a home that we just bought. And Wendy's like, hey, I think this will work perfect for David and Taylor's next property. So we called them. We got the house refinanced out of VA. We sold them this next house on their VA with nothing down. They kept the equity in this house. And guess what just happened? There's enough equity in that house, and that house is now cash flowing. There's enough equity for them to pay for college, 100% for Malia, and she's 2 right now. That's pretty freaking cool to know that I got to contribute towards her college just from a little bit of guidance and showing them how to do it and what it looks like. Guys, there's nothing greater. I understand like the high of selling a house, especially a big house, and working through some of these things. But there is no greater feeling than knowing what you're doing for your clients when you're helping them plan for their long term, because you've done it yourself and you've started to have that mentality. I talk more people out of selling their homes than I do, or more people out of selling their homes because I'm trying to convince them to keep them. And, I probably talked 25 people out of selling their homes this year because I wanted them to build wealth. Didn't stop the sales process. I just converted into something different. We just went down a different path. So that's the power of being able to understand the investment mindset when you start coaching your clients and asking the questions, right? So how does it equate to problem solving? Okay. Our industry is so defined by the norm, right? This goes back to who moved my cheese. But what a lot of you may not see is that your value equates to more income. The bigger the problem you solve, the more money you will earn, or the better the value of the property that you bought or whatever. So on the last call that I did, an agent that had reached out to me through social media, she said, hey, I'm going to this listing. It's in Gilbert. You know, I think that it would work perfect for what you do. And somebody from Title referred me to you and said that you buy things like this. I'm like, so we went through it and I said, hey, you know what? She said, I'm going to list it for $550. I'm like, cool. I said, have you asked the seller if she could net a certain amount, which at the time it was $490. Have you asked the seller if she netted $490, no commissions, no closing costs, would she take that deal and close on it in 10 days? And she's like, I haven't. I didn't ask that question. I said, okay, cool. So when you go into the appointment tonight, I want you to ask that question. I said, because you'll be amazed at what people are willing to leave on the table for convenience. And we're so afraid of violating the overall fiduciary responsibility. So let me just clarify this. Your fiduciary responsibility is to solve the person, to get them the most amount of money that solves their problem in the current time and space. And as long as you're upfront and you've given them options, you've met your fiduciary opportunity or obligation. And that is important. So I always tell people, hey, we can put it on the market and these are the things that we're going to have. These are the pros and cons of it. Here's the pros and cons of taking this. Which would you like to do? Either way, I'm going to create income, right? It just depends on how big the problem is. So she called me the next day and she actually shared on the call. She's like, oh my God, I don't know what to do because I called you and then I called this other guy that I know. And, you know, he's willing to pay $600,000 for the house. And she said, I can't believe I asked the question, the appointment, the seller was willing to take $490 for the house, no commissions. So now she has this dilemma. I've got a buyer that's willing to pay $6,000. I have a listing agreement of $550 with a 6% commission. What do I do? So I walked her through and here's what happened. She got paid for the value of her connection in that investor that paid $600,000. You know what she got the seller to agree to? To pay her an 8.5% commission. So she just increased on a $500,000 sale. She just increased it by 2.5%. And she ended up on a $500,000 sale getting a $50,000 commission because we had the conversation. Who doesn't want to increase like a sales commission to like 50 grand on one shot and it closed in 7 days because you had the ability to have the conversation? Too many of us don't put enough value on the problem that we solve. And we're defined by the overall real estate box of living in a commission world rather than an income world, right? So that one was about income. She solved a bigger problem for the seller and she created an extra $50,000 of income and she got to share in that additional income she created because of the conversation. So that's what we're doing, right? That's what I want you guys to be able to do, is to just change it. Can you imagine tweaking just a couple of deals a year that would create an extra 25 grand, 30 grand, in this case, 50 grand because of one conversation that I had with her? That's my passion. I want you guys to be able to do and have the conversations that I do without fear of screwing it up. You're not going to screw it up. It may not have the same outcome you wanted to, but that's what I'm here for, right? You know, I've gone on lots of appointments with agents, which is kind of funny. You know, I have agents call, they're like, hey, I've got this appointment. I think we might be able to buy it. Will you go with me? Well, sure. We'll go with you. I'm not there as an agent. I'm not there to compete. I'm there to help you problem solve. And that's how we win, right? And we look at it two different directions. So going, you know, up the stair step here, you go from investor, you know, so now you have the mindset of what am I investing in? And once you start to do it, now you're getting into, Garrett, my computer's going to die. I don't know if there's a charger there. So now what happens is you're investing your mindset and you know how to do it. Now you start equating that knowledge into your clients and the day-to-day conversations, and you start problem solving for people. You're able to move money around. You can use your relationships to buy houses for clients. Nicole has a really cool story that we did internally that I want to share with you guys. She had a client who survived lupus, 15 years, single mom, husband left her, all these different things. And she's about 18 months from qualifying, right? But she was living in a rented apartment. She really wanted to go through this. So she actually got with Andrew. They worked her plan to figure out, like, how long is it going to take to qualify? What do I qualify for? And Nicole found an opportunity through a Facebook group. We bought the house, paid cash for it. Wendy renovated it. And then we leased it to her on a lease option with a locked in price that she qualifies for in the next year. And she will be a homeowner, but the home that she's renting will be her home, and she considers it her home. And so we were able to solve that for her. And that's when you start getting into the problem solving. You're like, oh, well, I can connect this dot with this dot over here. It solves this problem. It creates a sale, and it creates a homeowner, and it creates wealth for her. Do you see what happens there? Like, those are life-changing scenarios that you get to start being a part of as you become the investor. And most people equate investor with like lowball, all the other things. No, my investment term is I'm a problem solver, right? I have the money and the resources to solve problems. And there's an investment opportunity when I solve those problems. There's an investment opportunity into your clients, into your staff, into everything when you start becoming the problem solver. My staff, everybody here, right? They're all gangbusters on buying rental properties, getting the theory, creating wealth, right? I want everybody that works for me to be millionaires, right? And I want them to invest in real estate, and I want them to see it, and they're all getting it. I watch Erica, who's our TC, she's TC on steroids, right? She's one of my partners. Watching her buy her third rental, and we're going through the creative finance strategy of how to get out of it with no money into it. And that was just from a conversation that she had with a friend where they were going to flip the house. They decided not to. She was able to step in and buy it, and she's creating wealth. And that's, I'm extremely proud of, my staff, and that they're all learning and seeing and going through it. And so that's why we're here now, right? You don't have to work for me to understand it, but I really want to show you how it works and really get you acclimated on how to build wealth. And more importantly, you get into problem solving and you get into that wealth building and financial freedom. What does that truly do for your business as a real estate agent for the future, right? So what it creates is it makes you market proof. People ask me all the time, what happens if the market takes a shit? What happens if 2008 happens? Sweet. I've raised enough capital. I know enough people, and I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm going to go capitalize on it. Yep. I've got a foundation of portfolio that is a fixed expense. It's rented. Yep, there's going to be some ups and downs with rent. But guess what? If this market were to take a shit, I don't care what my foundation is doing. Now I'm going to go capitalize on the other stuff. Because guess what happens in a market where it starts to crash? You start to see desperation. There's situations. And wouldn't we all want to be set up for if it happened? Because God knows you don't want to be trying to do it in the middle of it. I'd rather you be prepared for it going forward, that if it were to ever happen, I know how to solve for this market. Because I wish, I keep saying it, I wish I know now, or knew then what I know now, because there's so many people I could have helped differently had I had this mindset when we were going through short sales and foreclosures and different things. And I could have fixed a lot of problems, but I didn't have the knowledge. I have the knowledge now. Right. So I want you guys to be prepared for, yep, if the market cycles, even if it starts to go down, right? There's a small percentage of people that if this market like started to get flat, you'd have people like, oh, I better capture my equity right now. I need to move before it crashes. They would freak out, and you're going to be there to pick it up. You can try to talk them out of it, but let's be honest. There's some clients we just can't talk out of whatever family member opinion they've gotten into, and they don't listen to us. So then you capture the opportunity, and you make it into your own, and you create wealth with it. So don't be afraid of, hey, right now, because some of you guys might be thinking that. So I want to give you an idea of the current market, right? You might be afraid to capture an opportunity in the $300,000 to $400,000 price range. But let me tell you something you may not know. The rents have increased in percentage more than the market has appreciated. So what does that mean? That means that the rent in the last 2 years has gone up 30%, and which is actually a little bit more than like our appreciation level in certain areas. So the rents, it's insane to see all the people that call me right now. Hey, my budget's $2,500 a month for rent. My budget's $3,000 a month of rent, right? It's no longer these $1,000 a month rentals. So you can still buy a $400,000 house with 20% down and cash flow. You absolutely can, especially with rates. Now, where's the tricky part? How many of you guys are, and this is a great thing to really see, how many of you guys are struggling right now with buyers that are going through the process of, oh, I'm going to wait because the market's going to go down, and then I'm going to buy something when it goes down. Well, newsflash, and I just ran these numbers. It's pretty insane. If I buy a $400,000 house today, I'm sorry, a $450,000 house today at a 3% fixed rate, my mortgage payment is right around $1,900 a month. Okay, with 20% down. Now, if I fast forward to next year and I think rates are going to go up, let's say they go up a point, and let's say it comes true and all the buyers that we didn't list to, the market goes down 10%. So now the same $450,000 house is $400,000. Do you know what lenders qualify us on? Payment, not on the price of the house. See, I don't care what the price of the house is as long as my mortgage can be covered by the rent. But the minute the rates start to go to 4% and 5% and the prices are still up here, it no longer makes sense. Right now, the rental properties really make sense because of where rates are. And so your buyers need to capitalize on that. And one of the things they need to realize that I really talk to people about, and Andrew's going to nod his head, guys, interest rates today on a 30-year fix between 2.5 and 3, that is an asset in itself. Forget the house. The loan itself is an asset, 30-year fixed at 3%. There's so many things that you can do if the market crashes. You can do lease purchases, you can do wraps, you can do anything you want with a stupid interest rate like that because it's free money for 30 years. So if you go back to it and your buyers wait for the market to go down, guess what? Their payment is more on a $400,000 house that's $50,000 less because the interest rate went up a point. So don't focus on what the price is, focus on where the rates are and what potential rent is. And if your buyers are out there, that's a quick show like, hey, we might pay $450,000 for this house right now, but the interest rate is going to impact you for 30 years. That 50 grand is not going to impact you for the next 30 years. It's only going to make a difference when you go to sell it. And again, this is where we get into those investor mindset of just being able to show somebody numbers in what makes sense and trying to take their focus off of price and potential market downturn versus potential upturn in rates. So it's a changing conversation. 11:25. All right, let's wrap up here. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. This is why I did this. I hope that there was things in here that you can apply today to your conversations, to just your thought process. This was not a bait and switch, right? I told everybody this is introduction to my situational mentoring. And why do I call it situational mentoring? Okay. There's a lot of people out there. I am not one of them. I'm not a guru. I'm in the same business as you guys are. I still do this. I got to go get on calls when I'm done here to go buy and sell some houses just like you guys, right? But there's so many people that have reached out through DMs, through Facebook, like, hey, can you help me with this? Can I pick your brain? And guys, there's only so much time in the day, right? But I want to give back and I want to invest, but I also want you to invest, right? So you have to think about the rate of return, and you have to know that investing in the situational awareness, it's an investment for your future. This is not just one time capitalizing on anything right now. This is knowledge that you can apply to anything now and in 20 years down the road. That's what's cool about it. And so by doing it in a group setting, I'm really able to capitalize on a couple of different things. There's so many variables in our business. I can tell you guys stories all day long, but what really makes an impact is when one of you guys brings in a house and says, hey, I don't know what to do with this. What would you do with it? And then I'm going to cut that deal up and we're going to go in 25 different directions, right? I'm going to give you all of it. And I'm going to tell you how I would structure it, what it would look like, right? So now, how did I get out of focus? Yeah, I'm kind of eating the camera here. Why did I call it situational mentoring? Because you guys have all had coaches in the business. You've all hired mentors, different things. Situational coaching comes from when I spent some time at Front Sight, which is a firearms academy kind of in Vegas. We went through 2 days of handgun training. But what was most important about that training was they were training us to be situationally aware of our surrounding, right? So when you go into a house, you go into a room, you're aware of all your surroundings, your exits, those types of things. Situational awareness in real estate is when you walk into an appointment based on the questions you ask, the things that you do, it will give you situational awareness very quick on where your buyers and sellers are and how to guide them best. So it comes through a story and it comes through situations, and I'm going to get you prepared to do that. So Garrett, if you'll throw that up. So here's what it is. It's $1,000 a month investment for you guys. That's what it is. I know it's expensive for some. Some of you may not be ready for it. Then, the free stuff, the podcast Thinking OTB, if you guys haven't listened to it, it's awesome content for me and my partner, Bernie, that we do on the podcast. That's just for you guys, is just for agents. And then obviously Instagram, Facebook, I share a lot of stuff there. Right. The situational coaching, it's going to be the first and third Tuesday of every month. I'm going to go very deep into certain situations and show you guys exact structures as to how we've done things. And then the third Tuesday is going to be open office, which means this is an open 2-hour Zoom call. You can pop in, ask a question, pick my brain, and it's recorded because I know all of you guys can't be there, but it is an open line for you guys to just have any access for any questions. And I don't care if it's in your day-to-day business, it's a deal that you want to, it's something you looked up on MLS and you say, hey, what would this look like? We're going to break it down. And then it's going to be recorded so you guys can go back through and look at those recordings and kind of see what it is. So that's in a nutshell. If you guys are interested, I'm just going to ask that you DM me. The landing page is still being built. And I want to just take one more minute here. I appreciate you guys being on the call. I'm going to tell you right now, this is a little clunky for me as we're working out the back systems. I didn't want to wait. I would love to talk to you guys. I love to go through this stuff. So some of the technology stuff is a little bit clunky. I'm working through it. So just be patient with me. My knowledge is all up here. I don't have pretty landing pages and all that other stuff because the information is more important than pretty for me. And I just wanted it to get done and get out to you guys. So if you guys will DM me that you're in, I'll send you the link for sign up. We start next week on Tuesday. And the first 4 weeks is really like the free thing for you guys. Because everybody else that joins after November, they're just going to get these recordings where I'm going to dive really deep into the investor terminology and really get you guys in the mindset of understanding how the numbers work, how the flow works, and how to get into it. And for November, it's actually going to be every week for 4 weeks because those calls are going to be recorded. Same time, 10 a.m. They're going to go about an hour, maybe a little bit longer, just depend because I can talk. Obviously, I'm still here, hour and a half later. But there's just a lot of value and a lot of questions. So I'm going to stay on that call and make sure that you guys are really in tune with that investor mindset. So when we go into December, we are going to start with building your foundation and being prepared for opportunities to capture them and how to create them. All right, let's open it up for anybody that's still here that you have questions. You want to tell me I suck. It doesn't matter. Let's just have some conversations. So anybody that wants to jump in and talk, do it. I hate this awkward silence. Are there any more questions in there, Garrett?
Comments are starting to come. It just says it's such good stuff. I feel so motivated. And I also feel like your conversation allowed me to think about what my foundation looks like and what my goals are. I've always been asked how many investment properties I want, and I never know the answer. Now I do. Thank you for solving my problem.
Very cool. All right, guys, if nobody's got anything else, I appreciate you all being here and I hope you have an amazing day and I hope you got some value. Yeah.
Hey, I've got a couple of messages about the lending side. I put my link in the chat box. So I see a lot of questions about how do you do the financing? How do you do the ins and outs? So if there's people that want, like one-off questions about financing and some of the products and programs and things that are out there, use the link, hit me up, and we'll have some of those conversations one-off.
Yeah. And part of when we get into the mentoring thing, Andrew will definitely be on. And guys, here's the crazy piece of having Andrew on is you need to understand the lending guidelines and the rules and the different things that are available, because there's a lot of different things that if you know it, you can solve some pretty big problems, and you can also avoid some pretty big pitfalls. And so we're going through a bunch of those different things, because one of the things that people ask is like, okay, so how do you own 65 properties and have traditional financing on it? Well, Andrew's been working on a non-qualified mortgage product for me that we've done, I think 12 or 13 refinances in, which again, it's lent directly to the entity with a personal guarantee, and it's based on the appraisal, the rental appraisal. So it's a different way as to once you get through it, again, we're strategizing. So for those of you that don't know own anything, I'm going to help you strategize for not just now, but how to set up for future success. Because if you screw it up back here, you're going to have to unwind it, and it's going to cost you a little bit of money to do it. So we want to salvage you from doing that. All right. If everybody's good, I'm out. I'm going to get on another call. I appreciate you guys. And the last thing I want to ask, if there was some value today, if you guys take a screenshot now, whatever, if you'll just tag me in it, give some takeaways from today, I would appreciate it so very much. And I thank you guys for being on the call. Peace out. Have a great day.